Good afternoon, friends of Portland Cocktail Week. It is another beautiful Ketel One Marvelous Monday. Today we are going messy to marvelous by mastering your martinis with whatever you can find with Mary Allison Wright and McLain Hedges. My name is Fanny Chu, and this is my co-hostess with the mostest, Amy Ward. What's good, Amy? How's your Monday going?
I'm great, Fanny. Thank you so much. I am super pleased to welcome everybody today to Marvelous Mondays and super stoked to introduce this dynamic duo hailing from Denver, Colorado. Mary Allison Wright and McLain Hedges are a marvelous team of married humans that have the strongest of ethos, believing in equity, sustainability, justice, love, and Dolly Parton. They are owners and operators of multiple hospitality institutions, with Mary Allison being the expert on everything wine and McLain all the things beverage. So I'm super excited to get to know you all and learn about how to make martinis.
Yep.
Martinis.
Yes, that is the word. We have Amy back. Wonderful.
Am I back?
Yes.
Oh, did I go away? Where did I stop?
Right at martinis.
We were about to say martinis.
Oh, okay. No, like show us how to make martinis out of literally anything. Thank you, and I will stop being unstable of my connection. I hope, fingers crossed. But Mary Allison and McLain, please take it away.
Oh my God! Well, thank you so much for having us. We're so stoked to be here. This it's been a wild little time, but kind of fun in its own little ways. And I love the martini. I think personally, it's one of those drinks that a lot of us find comfort in. And this is something, especially right now, I mean, you're spending so much time at home, hopefully with your loved ones. If not, you're with your roommates and hanging out, and you've got a lot of projects on hand, and you need a little warm hug every once in a while, or an ice cold one in this instance. So, the martini for me is always one of those cocktails that I look at as kind of classic, comforting, and while simple, you let the ingredients shine, and it's not as simple as it is in the glass. So.
Exactly what he said. And I mean, the martini is one of those things that has endless variations, right? Between the type of citrus you use, is it dirty, how much vermouth, what type of vermouth, and with Ketel especially, you have this beautiful foundation, this gorgeous texture, and this beautiful like crystalline peppery note too, to like come through, lift everything up, but also play a really beautiful supporting role, which is super exciting. And I'm like salivating thinking about what we're going to be getting into. So I'll let you kick it off.
All
and I think
right.
we have some slides too.
Yep.
Assist with the visuals.
Ooh.
Assist us really and what we're supposed to be saying.
That's another version of us right there.
Love it, love it.
Serious mode.
Is that pre-COVID?
Yes, that's older. Yes.
How can you tell? We look 10 years younger, don't we?
Definitely.
Perfect. So, I think this is sort of really, we'll touch base just a little bit on our businesses, how we kind of, our philosophy really when we go into things. We look at sustainability across the board. We don't always look at it as just one, a product of produce or, limes, lemons, any of those things, although we certainly like to be sustainable when we're approaching all of that as well. But we really look kind of in, we look at our business like a family, and we look at our relationships very, intimately. And we love to, look at that aspect of sustainability and how can we grow our relationships, and how can we support our family, and how can we support our community and our crew, on multiple ends. So, whether it's how, again, how we try to be owner operators and sole owner operators. We don't like to, if we have the opportunity, we like to find partners that allow us to eventually, bring our business back into our own hands, so we're able to share that with our employees and our crew, and really do more with what profits that we are, the narrow margins that restaurants kind of allow for. So it allows us to really take that and put it back into what we do, and with hopefully with some of those ideas, when we start thinking about how we're looking at our business and putting more care into those things, we also do that with our ingredients, and again, carbon footprints, and again, just the sheer fact of like food accessibility in the world. If we're bringing something in, why are we going to waste it? It's great for dollars. It's great for flavor. we can create a whole lot more, flavor and waste a lot less is sort of a lot of our platform within making cocktails, at least. And we generate a lot of waste as a culture. So, this is our opportunity, at least, where we can make a small impact in, our businesses. And when we kind of take these approaches, I mean, it really drives us creatively. And it really helps us, I think, focus on, not just what's immediately in front of our eyes, right? The obvious is there, but what else is a little bit beyond that, or what's the other angle that we can look at, a presented problem of sorts, which might be a drink, of how we're making it, or again, what to do with a certain product now that we've brought it in house.
And just to expand on what McLain touched on, driving creativity, obviously all of these practices have human, social, environmental, economic impacts, but it's also driving creativity, right? And at the end of the day, that's what inspires a lot of us to do our jobs, to keep showing up so that we don't get in these ruts, or we're just doing the same old thing or the same version of something. And so that's a really important aspect that drives us, and I think our staff as well. So that's certainly a huge benefit.
Yeah, you could fall into the way that a business is supposed to be run, or the way that things are classically done, but there's also another way to do them.
Right. And I think, to touch on this point that hopefully people are seeing on their slide, like going beyond the idea of just maintaining or living in the status quo, it's just having that idea of improvement at the forefront, right? When you open a business or when you're creating, create opportunities to give back to your staff, create opportunities to close the loop in any way that you possibly can, putting dollars back in your community, using root to fruit, nose to tail. So going beyond the idea of just maintaining and really trying to create, expand, push yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's just going to create something new. And I think that's what we're all trying to do. I hope that's what we're all trying to do, and benefit humanity. And I think we can probably go to the next slide now. Perfect.
Ooh. This is where, having a partner both in business and in life kind of really come in handy. I mean, in many more ways than one, but I am not the most organized human being in life, and not to say that I don't get tasks done, but I will leave things places or find my own methods of organization that make sense to no one else but me. And sometimes those things get misplaced or lost, or find themselves in the back of a pantry or in the back of a refrigerator.
It's tough when you use pieces of trash to write important notes on. I mean, it's, you're not doing yourself many
sustainability
favors.
Again, that piece of paper.
Really just down to his note-taking practices.
Yeah, I don't need to go buy a notebook. They give them to me everywhere I go.
Yeah, there's notebooks literally just all over the street, the interstate. You've got endless.
They're called bev naps,
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I'm not the most organized, but when we are looking at, especially spending a lot of time at home right now, we've had a lot of projects and spring cleaning, summer cleaning. We've kind of experienced both of those right now because we were in one and now we're back. Now we're into summer, and we constantly are going through our kitchen and our pantry and finding new fun things to make if we've never made them before, and finding ingredients like, why did we buy this? Holy shit, we haven't. I don't know if we ever had a plan. We just saw it and randomly picked it up one day, and it's been in the back of the pantry for months and months. So it's been really fun to kind of take some of that time, clean out some of our old stuff in our life, and maybe find new use for it, instead of just getting rid of it. Hence, don't scrap that, because you don't really, you find something
Right.
that might have some use, why not explore it before you get, you get rid of it? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. At least you know that now.
Right. And likewise too, not only, sifting through the image of too much or, not knowing what to do with things. It's also that point of, I think a lot of us have experienced this during COVID, is you get to a point where you're maybe not ready to go to the store, or you can't go to the store. And so you're truly digging in to see what you can find, because a lot of things can be pushed and made into something that maybe we don't think of when it's not out of necessity, or when we have the things that don't force us to think that way. So
right.
a couple different ways of approaching that. And I think we've experienced all of those during this. So,
and a lot of it too isn't like maybe the stuff that's been sitting there for months or, that long. I mean, again, a bottle of wine that you used the other night, you cracked open with the, dinner and had a glass or two and didn't drink the whole thing. And then all of a sudden it's been in your fridge for a week and you're like, oh shit. Like, again, I'm not going to pour it in a glass and drink it as is, but there is another use for it. Again, you could cook with it, or as we'll talk about here in a little bit, kind of find another use for it so it can come back into your martini. We can go to the next slide now. So when finding all of these sort of random ingredients that have been hanging around the house, again, they can be a little bit of everything. Some are going to have a longer shelf life. Some are going to need to kind of find a new way of life really quickly. Fruit and vegetables and things that are really perishable versus things like maybe nuts and, longer term pantry items and spices and things that maybe you haven't seen in a while. But, these are some of, I think, the classic ways and even some more advanced ways of looking at what to do with all of that. And I am a huge fan. My garnishes for my drinks aren't necessarily always the most extravagant or beautiful, but I am always very practical with my garnishes. And martinis, I think, are like the best opportunity ever for a practical garnish, because I want something I can snack on when I'm having a martini. I use, like, sure, aromatics are always a extra added bonus, but always with a martini for me is like something salty, something crunchy, something that I can have. And it's almost more like that. It's funny, you can treat a martini like an aperitif and like wake your palate up almost. So you can have like those little like crudités and little snacks, but have a nice kind of strong beverage that's going to lead you into the night and or take the edge off of a long day. And so, I think you can take a lot of these ingredients, and I always have liked to take a culinary approach to what we do when we're looking at cocktails. I grew up cooking in kitchens before I was making drinks, and my family has a long history of working in catering and all of that. So that's sort of been most of my life. And I fell in love with that aspect and before I kind of got, again, behind the bar. But what I found with behind the bar is you're still creating something. You're still balancing flavors. You're still doing all the things essentially that you did in a kitchen, just with liquids more so than a whole bunch of other things.
And people watching you.
And people watching you, which, happens now in a lot of kitchens,
yeah, true.
Which is, but yeah, I mean, I think that goes both ways too. I mean, a lot of people maybe didn't grow up cooking a lot, but they're behind the bar and they feel maybe intimidated by getting in a kitchen and making, certain dishes or trying pickles or trying these things for the first time. And, you're already doing it, but you're just not doing it, on your daily. You're doing that. You're cooking with behind the bar with all the stuff that you make. It's just, very similar, just with different ingredients in the kitchen. So you're still trying to balance flavors. You're still trying to, bring in acid or salt or, season everything and find complementary things. So, I mean, it's really, I think, beneficial to kind of look at it on both ends and really start bringing in, as a bartender, more culinary aspects into your daily routine if you can. And then same if you're in the kitchen a lot, I mean, understanding the other half of how restaurants work and why we put certain things with certain foods. So
why things would be macerated.
Or why things would be fermented or macerated, and why that works better with drinks versus, in certain aspects versus others. So, I mean, it's kind of, I think great restaurants have done it well, where everything feels like it's very connected. But a lot of restaurants, I feel like, where the front and the back of the house just, clash or just don't really see much collaboration. And so our mission's always been work together more within a restaurant. And so this is one of the kind of foundations of what we really like to do is talk about, again, maceration and cooking things in different manners. Again, you can heat stuff up to actually cook it and make jams and things of the sort, or you can use dehydration to kind of for other purposes. So and then pickles of all sorts we're going to talk about that here shortly. There's many more ways than one to to make a pickle. I think we can roll on to that next slide as well. So, house vermouth. This is one that kind of, again, within a garnish, or at least within a martini, a very important part of a martini is the added other element, if there is one. I know a lot
The
of
contentious other element.
yes,
For some.
yes, exactly. But you know, I mean, whether vermouth or brine from olives, or another brine, again, which we'll kind of touch base on here shortly. Vermouth can add a lot of layers of complexity and heighten, especially with Ketel. I'm a huge fan of finding like a wine that's very minerally, something that's gonna carry on some of those like more delicate notes that I want, so I can still let the spirit shine, but really be complementary. So we kind of take, again, a bottle of wine from the other night that a couple weeks ago that we've had and didn't really have a use for. I mean, I've got another 4 bottles of wine sitting by the stove right now that I'm using for cooking. So this one needed another life to it, and what perfect challenge. So we we'll do this a lot, and we'll always experiment with what's happening. I mean, our garden right now is starting to kind of go off, and we've got a lot of fun things out there. So we're constantly pulling herbs, small amounts of things too, like maybe something we'll use in a salad or another dish, but we still have a little bit extra left over. Or we have all the stems and the things that we're maybe not making stock, because again, our freezer might be full of stock already, and we don't have any need to make more at the moment. But we do still have that scrap. And so within this one, we wanted to, it was kind of like a really minerally, slightly salty kind of white wine. Wanted to bring some flavors of what's happening within our world and of the garden, and what's kind of happening, with how I want to drink my martini maybe these next few weeks. So, we've chosen 2 kind of methods of maceration here. One, we use Ketel for the maceration of more kind of hearty roots and herbs and spices and things that maybe have a little more structure to them, to get the first maceration out. And then we also use the wine itself to macerate kind of the softer, delicate things that we didn't maybe want to extract either so much of, or overly extract and kind of damage the flavors that we we're trying to get out of those. So we did a couple of different ones, and then we brought those together for kind of a final thing. And this jar has sort of the final touch. Again, you've got some macerations for a little longer, then I want something really fresh too. So when I'm making my martini, I've got those layers of flavors that like I can, again, that complement, but kind of fall in unison together. So we're fortifying our wine, obviously, of vermouth. We want to fortify it, want to bring it up in proof a little bit. So we've macerated, and then we've brought that maceration in to the wine, and then we've sweetened it a little bit with honey. You can sweeten it with sugar, molasses. I mean, it depends on what flavor profile you're really looking for. I mean, if I was going for a Martinez, I'm going to use a lot, darker. I might still use a white wine, but I might use a lot more intense, spices and things to get a darker, kind of extraction and darker, flavor profile, I guess, out of my vermouth that I'm making. And then I might use, molasses or sorghum or something. I mean, something different, richer of a sweetener, instead of maybe using something light like just a white sugar. So, this is, again, finding things that we had around the house. I mean, I've got a ton of spices that are just sitting. I use them for a lot of stuff, but again, they have other uses, and I'm always trying to find, something that we can, because same in the restaurant, when I'm not at home, there's a big issue of, maybe you're closed on a Sunday or Monday, and you had wine left over the weekend, and now you've got 3 or 4 bottles of wine that are open that might not be up to the standard of what you want to serve to your guests, but you also don't want to dump them down the drain, because that's wasteful in many realms. Again, the carbon footprint to the dollar sign, behind it. So I think you'll find a use for this in your home, because it's fun to experiment with, and you can get away with more experiments and really hone it in. But then, you can also take it back to your bars and your restaurants and find an application that really kind of speaks to, you know, you more specifically as a restaurant too, which is, you know, like maybe you serve Italian, you know, wine specifically. So, you know, your vermouth can be very specific to that if you wanted to make it, you know, more for your program. So yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, for us, this was a fun way to start looking at things again, waste that we constantly saw. And I cook a lot, but I don't have, it's the same kind of thing with limes and lemons, you know, the whole, you know, making stock and juice and all of these other things. You can't do it with everything. You can do it with, you know, a portion of that, but then you got to find the other use for if you are still wasting stuff. I mean, we have limited freezer space, limited storage space, so we got to find, you know, other projects and other applications for the things that we have around our house. So yeah, and this is a really great one for me, and we'll bring it back in towards the end to make our martini when we're ready. But I mean, for us, again, I mean, wine is such a huge part of our life and such a huge part of a martini that I love to drink. And I know Mary as well. You know, I'm usually like a 3-to-1 drinker. And she's more of a 50-50 at the end of the day. But again, it plays a very important part within how, again, especially within the vodka you're using, and really complementing and not letting things overpower each other, and really kind of just play complementary and be friends.
Right. And I like what you said. I feel like this was a hot minute ago, but about using the martini as an aperitif. Obviously, it's very boozy, but giving yourself those little snacks or that little bit of vermouth, you know, it obviously, like, I think we're talking to a group that doesn't find it as polarizing to use vermouth, right? But letting people be educated without being pretentious about it, about why that might be enjoyable, right? It's going to pair nicely with your snacks. It's going to give it body. It's going to lengthen it. And then you can just sit around and enjoy yourself while you kick off the night, or enjoy your lunch, or, you know, what have you. Because typically when you're drinking a beverage with this proof, it's not to start your night. Well, I lie. We're not always to start your night.
Who are you talking about?
I mean, breakfast martinis, you know?
A breakfast martini, I'm very pro breakfast martini.
Yes.
I mean, Commander's, yeah, I mean, it's like Commander's Palace, the quarter martinis at brunch. Like, I mean, if I'm in New Orleans, which,
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah, treat yourself, yo.
The
Diversify.
I thought, yeah, I mean, the 3 martini lunch is how you got business done, right? I mean, that's how like, deals got made. No one knew what they were actually saying.
Hamster wheel.
Right, I'll sign off on that.
Sign off. Yeah, deal's done. You get home, you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh my God, what have I signed up for?
Right. A gym. No, that's a good thing.
Yes, I was gonna say that'd be like the best scenario.
Right.
Yeah, so I think, you know, for the most part that covers it on vermouth. I mean, I'm happy to talk about vermouth all day. As far as, you know, again, after this, if anyone has questions or wants to reach out, we can kind of talk about some different recipes within that, again, to fit your martini, what you like and what you're looking for. Because right now, I mean, especially if we're talking about being at home, I would say 9 times out of 10 right now, you're making this for you. So
right. And say you like
treat yourself,
medium bodied,
you know?
aromatic whites. You have the perfect foundation there to make a Blanc vermouth. Or say you like more minerally steely whites, there you go with your
dry vermouth.
Your dry.
You know?
And it depends on what you like and what you know have around the house, and that's so personal, but it's all there. You can do whatever you want with it, and it's really to make yourself happy at the end of the day. And then right now, and then, you know, eventually your guests, if you come up with something that you like. But we're all taking care of ourselves right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's self-care.
Yes,
it is.
All right.
So I think we can roll to that next slide. There we are. So
whoa, that looks crazy.
Ooh la la.
I haven't seen that one yet. Ooh.
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if you can. There's the sriracha bottle dumped upside down. So, you know, this kind of hits a couple of places. I'll touch base on the limes real quick. When we presented in Portland a couple of years ago, and I believe even last year we brought it out. This is just something we always do, and we kind of use both across the culinary aspect and and the beverage end a lot. Our lime, black lime powder essentially is what we call it. So we take our limes and we dehydrate them on a little higher temperature for a very long time. It caramelizes them. It makes them more like coffee, roasty, but not burnt. But you know, they're definitely over what you would ever want to dehydrate things for most purposes. But what it really ends up doing is all the oils and everything that's happening within the husk, you know, again, they get caramelized and roasted, but they're all still there. So we take that and we use it. We make cordials with it. In this case, we use it to make black lime peanuts, and we take that after they've been really dehydrated. We put them in a Vitamix and blast it. It almost sounds like you're gonna break the Vitamix into a million pieces. It's not a very pleasant sound for the first second, but once you blast through it, I promise you're not breaking your machine. It's meant to break stuff up like that. And you end up with a fine powder. I'll run it through a mesh, you know, depending on how fine I want it or whatever. If I'm making a cordial, it doesn't matter. If I'm using it in food, I like to use a finer powder because I don't want people chewing on larger chunks of it. So, but in this instance, we use it for black lime peanuts. And so this, you know, this will hold forever. I mean, the black lime powder, I mean, you dehydrate it, there's no, you know, any sort of water left in it at all. So you puree that stuff, keep it in a jar. It's on your, you know, back bar, you know, in your pantry for as long as you have it until you finish using it.
Unless you eat all of it alongside your first martini.
Exactly.
Which might happen.
But, you know, black lime peanuts are one of those things that they're awesome. I mean, they have like this total, like this depth and other side to them that you didn't really know a lime had that it could really bring to the table, but also it's very familiar too. So I've kind of got what you see there. This is the finished product of what that is. So, I mean, again, almost like fruit leather of sriracha, but not, it's much more dehydrated and dry, so it'll crack and turn into a powder as well. So that's sort of the idea behind, you know, you find all the time, again, we'll open our refrigerator, like go to the store and be like, oh, we probably needed some ketchup, maybe more sriracha. And we
I
get
just
home
fear running out of ketchup and sriracha, so we always are down to this much with a bottle.
With like a new bottle right next to it or whatever. And, you know, sometimes you need to make some room in your fridge for something new and not necessarily making something. Again, I need to get this bottle out. I don't want to throw away, you know, a little bit of sriracha. But I'm not going to eat anything with it right now. So, you know, this is another really great application to be able to like clear some space out and find something. So I poured out, you know, the last little bit, dehydrated it, and then we'll take that again and blend that. And then to make the peanuts, essentially you're making a caramel with sugar and water. So 2 parts sugar, 2.5 parts sugar, 1 part water, and then cook that up to like 280 degrees. Essentially you want it to get to like candy level. And then you throw your peanuts in there and your black lime and your sriracha powder and some salt and just whip it up a whole bunch until it's, you know, nice and coated, and then dump it out on a sheet tray. And you've got, you know, let it cool, come down, and then you break it up, and then you've got these delicious, salty, slightly spicy, you know, bright pop of that or that lime oil still there. So it's almost got this acidity to it, which is really nice. So again, like alongside of a martini, it's really perfect to have that like citrus oil, that salt,
pepper.
Yeah, crunchy, fat, all of those things that are kind of there. And then you just get to like knock it back with that like super clean, you know, just refreshing kind of thing. So.
Amazing.
And there, I mean, you know, it is. And we take the limes, I mean, the peanuts as well, and, you know, make a black lime peanut ice cream and I mean, there's, you know, you can start experimenting more and more with what you would do. But I mean, it's such a great bar snack as well. Yeah. And again, from things that, you know, most of the flavor and most of what you're putting on there is stuff that you might not have used if you know, you might have thrown it out or just seen it go into a bulk something, and, you know, it wouldn't have made it as special.
Right, and citrus husk and the end of a sriracha bottle, I feel like are
common.
Yeah, common waste products. So it's, you know, it's not uncommon that you might find yourself among those things, and it's a really cool thing to be able to show off to friends or, yes, but also it's delicious for yourself. There's no reason to share that. And I wouldn't wish sharing that with anyone on any of you. I want you to eat all of it.
And dehydrated or dehydrated sriracha is also really great. I mean, again, you can make the powder and use it as a rim. You can go beyond. I mean, it's like concentrated sriracha without like the mess. So it's just kind of like for your enjoyment.
Definitely have my curiosity piqued. I'm very, very wanting this right now would be awesome.
And I think maybe to just expand even further, like obviously not exclusive to the peanut, that's how we prefer it. But if you have another nut, or if you can't eat nuts, popcorn. Yeah. Make a candied popcorn with it. It's just as great.
Or not even, you don't even have to candy it. I mean, you can just use the powders themselves with some salt and other, complementary flavors. I mean, rosemary and black lime on some popcorn would probably be really great. Right. Whatever you might have again around your house. I mean, this is, we all have different, tastes and have different pantries. So I'm sure that what mine has, yours might not. So find the things that you love and that you like to eat together or drink
sometimes
together.
I impulse buy popcorn at the store thinking like, I'm going to get a healthy snack. And then I have a handful and I'm like, okay, back to the Pringles or, whatever. So
or there goes the whole bag.
Right. So sometimes I do have popcorn just sitting around, but it just depends.
I think for sriracha, at the very least, you're talking to bartenders.
Yeah.
Every bartender that's watching this is going to have sriracha in their house.
Yes.
Oh, and I kind of thought to myself, I was like, what person isn't just going to take the last little bit of sriracha and just squeeze it on top of whatever they're eating too? But sometimes it doesn't happen,
Well, and like you said, like space comes into it. You don't have, like a lot of times we don't have room to keep the last little bit in the new bottle or something like that. And so you don't just want to take it out and throw it away. Obviously you don't want to beat yourself up if you do, like there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have a few seconds to take a parchment paper or, or whatever you have on hand, a sill pad or something and pop it in the oven and just see how it turns out. It's just a fun experiment too.
I would say parchment paper is one of those things that is become very, very important in my life over the past few years. But
secret, if you eat a lot of frozen chicky tendies like I do, it's great to put on top of a baking sheet because then you don't have to wash the baking sheet. So
Exactly.
Saving water, silk, sustainability. Look at you all, just everything you do.
Gotta waste a little something, but maybe one over the other. I mean, give and take. But I mean, it's important. Have that stuff around for sure.
Right. Should we? Next slide.
Do you store your nuts in the refrigerator, or do you just keep them in room
temperature? We can't keep them in like a Tupperware or something. Again, in the pantry. I mean, after they're candied, they're pretty stable. I mean, you've cooked that sugar up to a point where the water is essentially evaporated out, and it's become candy again. So after it sits out and hardens, I mean, as long as you're keeping it stored like in an airtight container, it'll store for a pretty good bit. Again, once you start eating them, you won't be able to stop.
Yeah. It's like super crispy, so I usually keep all of my nuts, whether it's like candied or not, in the refrigerator because of fat cotton.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I mean,
super crunchy, and I love that.
I love everything crunchy. I like texture is here for me.
I'm a pariah. I like mushy. I also like crunchy, but I like mushy fries. And so we work. Maybe that's why we've been together so long.
I won't even won't even touch a mushy fry. I like push it.
That's the secret to our relationship.
Yeah, I like a mashed potato, but not as a French fry.
I give my mushy fries to my dog. That's
what I do. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh man.
Tell us about this mother brine.
Ooh.
Yes.
So, this is something that I love to just keep around. I make a bunch of it. I usually keep it in my refrigerator. I keep a nice little bag, like a 4 or 8 quart something in the back of the refrigerator, and just reserve a space for it. Know that I can stack things on top of it and move it as I need. But I always like to have a brine around for, again, different purposes. Depending on what I'm pickling and what I have. Right now, especially the garden is, again, it's really starting to produce a lot of stuff, but it's the things that it's like each little thing is putting one out. And like some things are like really small, and about like in a week from now, it'll be insane. But right now it's like I just went and pulled like one squash earlier, and I was like, what am I gonna do with one squash today? Like, I mean, it'll feed me maybe, and maybe not Mary, so we got to find something to do with it. And so we always kind of keep, I want to keep Brian around just to make pickles really quickly if I want. So I'll, pull it out and heat some up and pour it over whatever I might have out that I've just finished prepping maybe that night for a meal. So if I'm, maybe making a chicken dish and I've got, carrots and other, the butts of things. So like, like you can kind of see it there in that picture, but these little guys, all the things that you kind of trim up and maybe leave. Using a mandolin on a bunch of radishes. So I got down to that. I didn't want to lose my finger, so I was keeping, the rest of those tops.
So the same things you'd use for stock, you'd hold and use it for.
Totally, absolutely, and even again, like your herb stems. I mean, I've got we'll talk about this in just one second. The other brine that I, will keep around or at least use a lot. But like the other day, I've got a lacto ferment going on right now that we just kind of throw things into as needed. I mean, I don't keep it going for forever, but
and sometimes it's like, a single squash is great if you live alone. You can I like them raw. You can put it on a salad. Like a single squash will absolutely feed you.
Yeah.
But sometimes you maybe buy a few at the store, you use a couple for the meal, and then you don't really want the last one or something, and you're like, well, I just ate it. I'm not gonna, so you're
right.
So it's maybe just like making it a little bit more exciting for yourself, even too.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, this is like the perfect way to make it more exciting, and I think especially within like the lacto ferment side, it's alive, it's living, it is exciting. I think it's like what's happening, and I think all the vegetables that are in there are excited to be in there. I mean, it's a party in there. All the bad stuff was shut out, and all the good stuff's in there hanging out together. So, but like so I keep the one brine in, and again, if I'm cooking and I've got some things like some basil stems or some herb stems, and then some we did fried rice the other night, and I had a whole bunch of carrots and other things and ginger, and I was like, all right, cool. I love carrots and ginger together. I think they're really, really awesome. Pulled some brine out, heat that up, and I'll just throw that in a little jar. I don't have to make a ton, right? If I've got the brine already made and I've just got a few things left over, and maybe I just want to have a few pickles the next day, or again, if I'm making a martini, tomorrow, the next day, later in the week, I've got some pickles for me to have alongside of that martini of what I maybe ate earlier in the week, but now I get to kind of relive it in a different scenario. And so, again, and maybe you want to just pickle a whole bunch of stuff, and that's also great. I mean, again, when this garden starts popping off more, I'm going to be pickling more and more deliberately. But this is, again, just a really great way at the end of a meal, maybe that when you've been prepping, or you find that like one or two things that have been hanging around in your fridge that are about to get, over the hill and have to go into a trash can or compost pile, pickle them up. And again, take the small scraps, take everything. I mean, it's all edible. I mean, it's all like, I would eat the top of, that cucumber. I don't see any issue with that. It's delicious. And so, but at the same time, I'm not going to maybe put it on a plate in a restaurant as like, especially at a restaurant, like you got your plated dish, like you're usually not putting those parts on that plate. So this is also a great way to maybe go back and talk to your kitchen when you are back at your restaurant and see them prepping salads all day or prepping whatever. And you're like, yo, y'all just threw away like 30 butts of cucumbers. Like, that's crazy. We could use that at the bar, and pickle those things and have that as, and at the end of the day, it either goes along with, or it's a complimentary bar snack that, again, it was already going in the trash. So now you've automatically like added value to your customer's experience without having to spend really any money, because it was already spent. So, and you already used what you were going to use out of it. So it's kind of that, find a way to bring it not only into your life, but into your customer's life if you have an opportunity. But, nonetheless, we're back at home and we're hanging out, and we just finished dinner. And so we've got that pickle going. Again, I just went out to the garden today and picked this single. It's a first tomato that just came off. It's so tiny. I want to eat it, but at the same time, like it also, like I've got this little lacto ferment that I've had going, and it's got some corn and some basil and some squash ends and a little bit of green onion. And, you know, I can just toss my tomato in there and I'll put my weight back on it. I keep a little weight to keep everything submerged. But like this started 2 days ago. Sometimes I like to let them get to like day 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, the longer they go, the funkier, the more sour, the way that goes. So this brine is different from the brine that I usually keep in my fridge. So the one that I keep in my fridge is a vinegar base. It's kind of like cheating. I'm imparting acid into it. You know, I'm bringing, whether you can choose whatever vinegar you like and whatever flavor profile you're going for. But the mother kind of base brine, look at it as kind of two different ways. It's either a 1-to-1 vinegar to water or a 2-to-1 water to vinegar, depending on how intense and vinegary you like your pickle. Do you want it to be like really bright vinegary, high acid? Do you want it a little lower? And again, depending on the fruit or the vegetable, how much it can take on as well. Some that are more dense, you know, take more time and more heat and more acid to maybe come through as much. So those are like the ratios. I mean, we all know that ratio there, right? 1-to-1, 2-to-1. It's very similar within the kitchen too. So think about that, you know, if you are ever intimidated when you're, you know, again, stepping into the kitchen, ratios that we use behind the bar are very common within the kitchen as well. So there's a lot of 3-2-1s. There's a lot of 1-to-1-to-1s. And you kind of, so you start finding those ratios, and again, the ones that you really like, because you are trying to treat yourself while you're at home. Find those things that you really, you know, those ratios that really make sense to you. And again, you know, if you stash that in your fridge, it's not going to go bad. It's vinegar and water and salt and a little bit of sugar, and it'll hold for forever essentially. And you just pull it out and use it as you need it. And then the other type of pickle is the lacto fermented pickle, which I think you'll see a lot in like Jewish delis. You know, the classic half sour, full sour. Those are usually lacto fermented, not your brine, or like the ones you typically maybe buy at a store, which is like a brine based, not a fermented based product. So they're living. They're not. You haven't imparted acid. You have taken sugars and converted them to acid, and you have, again, you've shut out the bad bacteria by adding salt, usually, and then created a very fun environment for lactobacillus to come and do its job and change all of these, you know, change what's happening in there into lactic acid and make it really bright and fun and alive. I mean, really, I mean, again, it's like you can very much tell it's much more zingy, a very different acidity, but
it's like, can we actually see that jar again? Would you hold
yeah,
it up?
yeah.
And I don't know if anyone else is like us, but you know, a lot of times throughout the summer, you'll see these like 8 ears of corn for $1 or something. And so we're like, yes, of course. Why wouldn't we get that many? Well, that's a lot of corn. Even if you're making a dish that's like corn first, it's still a lot.
And again, who's like, that's like one of those things. Like, I fell for it at the store. Like, wait, we bought 8 ears of corn?
What a deal!
What a deal! You can't pass it up. But then all of a sudden, you had no plan for it. So, you know, we grilled a bunch of corn, but then I again took it, threw it in here, and kind of have it fermenting. I mean, fermented corn is delicious. Yeah. Really, all of these things are. And so when you have like, you know, again, a martini, if I'm looking to have a martini, having that live pickle alongside of it is just really, really a different experience.
Heck yeah.
And we're talking like a 2%. This is like a 2% brine, so like 2% salt to the weight of the fruit. Or the weight of the vegetable, is essentially what we're looking at. And then again, let it sit for 3, 4, 5 days longer. By day 2, you'll start to see the ferment happening. But
do you ever like to use any of those brines in your cocktails as well?
Yes.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
And moving on to the next slide. I'm just
No, I don't think so. I don't think, well, maybe. But yes. But yes, absolutely, and that's going back to like thinking about these complementary flavors. So again, like in this one right here, that's happening is corn, a tomato now, some squash, and a bunch of basil stems. So I mean, corn and basil, tomatoes and basil, all those things work really well together.
It's like summer in a jar.
And same with, you know, again, another brine that if I'm making a vinegar brine, like you would, you know, again, see in most of your store-bought stuff, I think about the flavor profiles that I want to have alongside whatever I'm making. So if I'm having carrots and ginger, or, you know, I like blueberries and like a more hearty herb of some sort, or like fennel and blueberries or something. I mean, and it's kind of becomes that extra layer. Again, if you wanted a dirty martini, like I'm not saying I'm overseeing only olive juice used in dirty martinis.
McLain's not the biggest olive fan, so maybe that's a good tip.
True.
I love olives. I still put black olives on my fingers. I olive free. So that's, I will gladly drink, you know, traditional olive brine, dirty.
Yeah, and same. But even so, like I'd rather have a Castelvetrano olive or a different olive brine, you know, something that's you know, a different flavor profile than you're
you get your savory from.
Yeah. Right. And same with this, you know, I don't see why you wouldn't take a lacto fermented fruit that's like, say, a strawberry or something that's really salty, and using a little bit of that and say a super clean martini with a touch of, you know, vermouth, and shake it, and so it's like salty but floral instead of you know, only that savory aspect. And I mean, again, carrots and ginger, a little bit of carrot ginger brine up in that and shaken, like it's a whole different, you know,
well, and you've got this
experience
foundation, right, of like, you know, you have body, but it's clean, peppery, as we touched on earlier. And so any of these brines are just going to make this like beautiful new dirty martini. You're treating yourself to something that you haven't had yet, because you're creating something that's unique to you, unique to your refrigerator, whatever you had on hand. And you can, you know, literally throw anything in there, or you can go for something like McLain was saying, like ginger and carrot, something that is a good pairing or that you just want to try. But you're creating something new while still sticking in the lines of like the brine martini or something like that. So it's yes. And a long answer, long yes. Do go into martinis.
Yep.
Perfect.
Amazing. Should we move on to the next slide?
Yes.
Aha.
Ooh.
So this is, I was kind of trying to lead him in this direction, because I selfishly want him to make this and then talk about the fermented strawberry basil tincture. Obviously, I'm a strawberry baby. I have a June birthday. I'm a freak for strawberry things. But you know, your strawberry tops are like, you can like, you know, nibble around the stem or cut the stem off and use the whole thing. But generally, if you're making something, you're left with strawberry tops. And same with basil. You know, basil stems still have a lot of flavor, but it is stocky and stemmy. And so it's not necessarily something that you're going to put into your dish or a pesto even. So it's really just a way to take two things that people end up having on hand quite often, and especially if you're us, because we are huge fans of those ingredients, and making something totally new, and riffing off of a drink that's familiar, but making it a little bit more summery, pretty, floral. Do you need me to grab glass?
No. So, you know, when we said strawberry tops, so these are the berry tops that I was talking about. Again, this was fermented a few days ago. Always label my bags and kind of the percentage of salt that I use. Again, for my own notes and random things, and see how long I like the ferments to get.
All the time.
And there goes my lack of organization, but this is actually pretty organized.
I'm like shocked right
now. But you know, again, like these are deliciously salty and still edible, and like I'll probably chop those up and make a little, I don't know, put them in a salad or do something with them, because they're going to be like really zippy and bright and salty.
Like this with, in place of or with tomatoes, with like mozzarella, basil, you know, kind of riff on a caprese or something, like with balsamic. I feel like that could be.
Right. And like you don't have to bring as much salt into it, because a lot of it's here. So it's like you'll get the pops where you need to. And then you're left with like a lot of like really great liquid in there too. I don't know if you, I mean, there was more than that, because I've made a tincture since, but I always, if I'm at the bar, we have a daiquiri that's been on our menu for a long time, and we do it with vodka. I mean, really, it's kind of an interchangeable spirit scenario,
We
but
make
it's
a lot
always,
of vodka riffs on it.
yeah. I mean, it's really more about the fruit that's in season for us. So we're always kind of bringing, you know, it's always changing as the season's changing. But we do a big lacto ferment, and we make a cordial out of that. So it's like a salty, bright, kind of sour, you know, gimlet berry, whatever you want it to be. But we always kind of have it around. So I use the liquid usually for multiple things. We'll use it in dishes at the restaurant. We use it, and same at home. I like to finish certain dishes with like a vinaigrette with the juice in there, because it's way better than seasoning it with, again, just salt. Use it with, if I'm making a vinaigrette for like a salad, which I might do tonight.
And you will keep the tops on those for your fermentation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, there's a lot of good microbes happening just on the outside of this. And if I'm usually, again, the only reason I'm kind of left with these, I mean, you could pull the tops off yourself, which I feel like if you were maybe cooking it down into a jam or something, you would have just maybe pulled the tops off. But again, we were slicing the strawberries for a different purpose. So I was kind of left with these, and yeah, I just left them on there. I mean, it'll add a little bit of grassiness too, probably, you know, I mean, help with that flavor and bring all the elements of that strawberry in. You can certainly remove them. It's not the end of the world if you did.
Do you ever Vitamix them so that it's incorporated?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll Vitamix. I mean, again, depending on what we're trying to make, but when we're making our cordial, we Vitamix it in, and then, you know, we'll strain that out, and then we lay all the pulp out on, again, more parchment paper, and then we'll dehydrate it and make fruit leather out of our fermented, you know. I mean, there's a snack, there's a garnish, there's, you know, another layer.
Just don't confuse it with the dehydrated sriracha. That would not.
They could look
That's
the same.
not the fruit leather that you wanted.
Strawberry tastes funny.
It'll be like spicy sriracha, strawberry leathers, you know, like.
I mean,
Not
maybe
bad idea.
together they wouldn't be that bad.
Right.
Yeah.
A spicy mango or pineapple one might be good.
I feel like, why not a strawberry?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of uses for it once you ferment it. I mean, really, they're endless. But for again, this sake of this martini, I wanted to make something that was sort of a well-seasoned martini, not a dirty martini, but something that was clean and minerally, that kind of spoke to the season, that was seasoned. So it's definitely got some salty, briny edge to it. And a floral side to it as well. I also have some Ketel One soaking some other of the tops with some basil stems, and again, some more stuff from the garden, just some more herbs and stuff. So we've taken sort of that infusion and this fermented juice and blended those to make a little salty bitter or tincture of sorts. You know, it's got the bitter, it's got some really cool bitterness actually, just from the leaves, and yeah, I think the seeds and the tannins, like there's definitely like, and again, the stems of the herbs, like there's a nice little, like almost slightly bitter edge to it, but it's really nice and salty and really beautiful and fruity. So you know, we use that. I've bottled it up here in this little, you can use it as an atomizer too. I mean, depending on if you wanted it to be like an aromatic more so than you know, something you really tasted. But you know, for this martini, I'm gonna do like 5 or 6 dashes, something like that. Again, I want it to be seasoned, and I want to know that the strawberry and the basil are there, but I also still want my vodka to be like this,
Right.
the thing that's driving and carrying all of these flavors. Again, this is another house vermouth, a blanc that we wanted to make. Again, complementary flavors. Oh. This one, right? Yeah.
Not this one.
Not that one. So, 1/2 ounce of your vermouth, 2 ounces of your kettle, and about 6 dashes of the fermented strawberry tincture. Quality ice from the old refrigerator here, whatever you have on hand.
Some people the fancy ice.
I know.
Not us.
Refrigerators do
We're
make nice
refrigerator
ice.
ice.
Yeah.
Occasionally we will splurge for some cold draft or remember to grab some and bring it home, but
More and more rare now that we're not at the restaurant
Right.
as much, that's for sure.
Kitchen ice works perfectly fine.
Yes, it
Yes.
does.
Bartend with whatever ice you have.
Absolutely. Chilled glass.
Ooh, look at that hue on it too.
Actually, just a little kind of pink hue on there. Again, visually, it kind of reminds me of what I'm maybe about to get myself into. You know, and then again, on the side, I like to I'll either make like a small little snack of sorts with, again, if maybe some berries and a little like micro herb or something, and just have like a little like snack of sorts on the side.
the black lime peanuts would be
The
great.
black
with
lime
this.
peanuts. I mean, really any pickle, the fermented strawberry tops that you could have on the side as well. We'll chop those up. Again, you know, depending on what you really want. Again, a lemon twist over this would never disappoint as well. Again, but for my martini, I'm very like, everything usually goes in like a little ramekin on the side, with a cocktail pick, and it's always meant for like a 1-in-1 for me. It's a snack and a drink and an experience as a whole. So, you know, I usually never hand someone a martini and like twist, and that's what you get. I will twist over it, but I'll hand you something alongside of it. And this is sort of, and again, you know, you're at home right now. You have all the time in the world to experiment with all the things that you like to have alongside of your martini. And
I mean, honestly, I think a basil leaf, obviously that's not really a waste product. That's a valuable part of the plant, but I mean, it's all valuable, but it's a, you know, higher real estate part of the plant. Maybe like a beautiful basil leaf floating on top of this would be really nice.
Yeah.
You know, with a little cracked pepper or
exactly.
a skewer of the fermented strawberry top. Like there's so many options to garnish this,
Yeah.
or you could just garnish as we do with the snack along the side. But to me, this is like a summer garden Ketel One martini, right? You are just beefing up the flavors that you already are finding, and adding in some very fresh, floral, pretty summer aromatics.
Yeah.
And I don't know who wouldn't want that right now. I mean, I understand how cameras work. There we go. We can see it now.
Yes. Give me the
What's
martini.
here?
That looks incredible.
Yeah, I want to drink.
Clean, simple. I mean, nothing crazy. Obviously, this isn't, you know.
Yeah, I'm at home. I'm not like, I mean, even at the bar, like, again, I'm not the craziest garnisher when it comes down at the end of the day, but even at home, like at the end of the day, like I just want to enjoy the drink. And so if I'm gonna garnish it, then I'm gonna have what I want with it. And it doesn't need to, I mean, you're at home, it doesn't need to be super fancy unless you want it to be. And if you like to garnish your drinks up and you want to feel like you're at a bar, garnish it up. Like more garnishes, the better on a martini, you know, like more pickles, more twists, more olives, more snacks, peanuts, all that stuff. I mean, because you might not only have one, so you might need a little something else. So.
You might need something in your stomach.
Maybe that's real, especially if we're doing this as a starter, right?
Right.
Starter cocktail.
This, I wish you had smell-o-vision. This
know.
smells so good. It's making me salivate. It smells incredible.
I feel like
I think Kenny and I are both there with you. I mean, she's trying to grab the drink through the screen.
Yes.
So
When we one day meet in person, it will be over these, I hope.
yes, love it. So if people wanted to get in touch with you or follow some of the wonderful things that you're doing, could you tell us what your handles are for Instagram and things like that?
Yeah, so technically we share an Instagram handle, but I'm the person behind it.
She's the main voice. I play background role.
That's a very easy way to get in touch with us. It's Eat, Drink, Be Merry, spelled M-A-R-Y, and McLain, M-C-L-A-I-N. And then our emails, and we are always in an open communication. We love to share information. We've been blessed with people that have shared information with us. We would not be where we were today if people hadn't. And so nothing is a secret for us. We'll share whatever we possibly can to help you. And so that's not our email handle. That would be very long, but our emails are maryallisonwright@gmail.com and McLainHedges@gmail.com. So very easy to find. We're happy to share all of these recipes. I know this was a sort of glimpse at them.
Yeah, and I do have all of the recipes for each individual thing, as well as some other ideas for other, things that we've, experiments that we thought worked really well. And then just, I have a whole lot of different pickle recipes and flavor combinations that I really like to use and stuff like that, if anyone ever wants, wants a little help with anything, we're here.
Awesome.
Chilling.
Yes, you two definitely struck me as educators by trade. So I would try to share how to get in contact with you so they can do that.
Yes, thank you. Please reach out. Any question. Nothing is too silly. I actually prefer silly. And we would love for you to learn from our mistakes instead of make them, even though it's a great learning tool as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Please don't hesitate to reach out.
And we miss everybody. We want to talk to people.
Yes, desperately, please.
Please, won't you email these people? For one email a day, you can make someone so very happy.
See, my friend.
A really sad ballad in the background.
I know, like Sarah McLaughlin or something.
Well, thank you, Mary Allison and McLain, for sharing your marvelous martini knowledge. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Portland Cocktail Week, Another Round, Another Rally, and Ketel One for letting Amy and I host these Marvelous Monday series. Join us next week because that double buzz returns. We're excited to see these makers of Marvelous, Amanda Witt and Souther Teague, chat about coffee varietals and demonstrate brewing techniques for cocktails through their Ketel One espresso vision. See you next Monday, friends.
Love it. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See y'all
Thank
soon.
you.
Happy Monday. Happy Marvelous Monday.
Marvelous.